It's easy to be short for words standing here. You know, there's been two shockers lately. The first of which hadn't set into you, and the second of which I could see clearly. When I turned in that driveway and I seen this line of cars and people, literally in shock of the people that took their time, gave their life, their friendship, their love, and made this trip. I want to remember every vehicle and every face. It's absolutely incredible. My son is definitely honored by every single one here, including that bald-headed one right there, probably still nursing. You know, I wrote this stuff down, and I'll stick to that very best I can. I asked his mother before I stood up, is there anything you want me to say? And I better get that out first. She says, quote, "He was my everything." Everything's a pretty broad coverage term to me. She said he was my first thing in the morning. He was my coffee drinker. He was my weed eater. And he was my last thing at night. And she drops her head and says, "I don't know how I'm ever going to make it through this." Personally, I know that through the love of Christ and the grace of God, we made it to this. And He didn't give us here to drop the ball. I can't speak for the people. I know His sisters are just distraught. I lost my page before I got started. You know, I wanted to apologize for bouncing around and hitting different subjects, and if it fell in line and all that, but y'all are not going to get that from me. And I recall as a young couple, we can recall, I'm pregnant, or rather, I'm late. Completely unaware and prepared for what my life had. She, much more than me, much more prepared than me when it comes to predictability and reliability at the time. Anyway. In love and needing nothing or no one. The two of us set out on a journey. And sooner than later, there were three. On October the 5th of 1991, we were blessed with a son named Jeffrey. He was healthy, lively. What could you possibly complain about? He certainly gave ample reason to continue this journey, this responsibility, the parenthood, and the dreams and the desires to succeed became survival at times. Jeffrey learned early on, with just a few squeals or whines, he'd find fast relief from his mama to whatever his issue was. Whether it be wet pants or a hungry gut, he got it. I recall when it was time for him to eat, which came in much short intervals than I realized at the time. I remember his mama cringing because that boy went easy on nothing in life. Jeffrey grew so fast, we never knew what he would be or do. We didn't care. We would have guessed that he would be anything that required a ton of energy, little fear, and held risk. That's how he rolled. Jeffrey brought a ton of smiles, laughs, and from the start. And very early on in life, he became a concern and liability in some areas in the world. And before he knew it, he was a big brother. And you could almost hear the word sissy roll off his lips and out of his heart as his mother paired them two up, and it was Sissy and Bubba, Sissy and Bubba, Sissy and Bubba. And he'd drag her around like an old football. And he'd carry her in his pocket had he been able to. I recall him cutting his finger one time with a retractable utility knife while he was helping his mama hang wallpaper. That scar was prevalent to this day on his little thumb. But he was always available to help and had solutions for most anything, at least he thought. Despite the level of commitment or risk it might have involved. What a great idea I had to teach him to be impulsive. And quick to get up when he fell down, never to cry. Almost some things I regret. Even telling or showing him. He got love from his mother and calluses from his daddy. He quickly learned to do for others and found joy in giving 100% to whatever it was he set out to do. Including scoring a soccer goal one time in a game when he got the ball on the opposing end and worked it through every single person, even defeating his own team who was trying to turn him around. The stands are going wild. All you seen was him with his little spiked hairdo traveling down the field, closed-minded as can be. All he had in mind was that goal. Go down there, shoot a goal, and think, hey, what are y'all griping about? So we had a know-it-all, never wrong little boy. At least he wouldn't admit it at the time. But he was in high demand by his mother and I. faced some adversity as a youth growing up in a household based by decisions made by others. But his mama was a fix-it-all. With this invisible glue, based in love, commitment, and hope, things would be brighter. He learned a lot by trial and error, and a little by listening. He would love things, or he would spur them. Not much middle ground. In his mind, a piggy bank was fair game. And it had no name, no matter what you had on it. He lived hard, he played hard, and he loved just like that. He became a big brother again to Jory Lynn. This time to one that was ready for calluses as well. So he had a lover and a fixer, and I'm always there for one sister, and he had competition in the other hand. We were able to witness him work hard as well, often for the cause, whatever it may be, and often for free. To those who knew him, it was usually a great experience. Like everyone, he had his moments. To those he lived with, to those who lived with him and raised him, he was a beautiful mix of chaos and kind-heartedness. He loved his freedom. And through R&D, he lost it a few times. And I remember in the last year, him describing a particular soap. It was just pitiful. He wanted a little better bar soap. In school, he became more accomplished as a bell ringer when he's 5 seconds before being late than some could accomplish all day. Or he'd throw a little BS on you and try to persuade you, which often worked. You hear the saying that the apple don't fall far from the tree. That don't make it a bad apple. bad choices don't make bad people, bad intent does. And that he never had. I think I've skipped a page, but I've said thank you. And I want to reiterate that. Tabitha, Gentry, and Jory, and myself will remember this view we've had, these friends, these experiences, and these memories forever. Sometimes life begins unexpectedly, and sometimes it ends the same way. My son, our son, and our big brother would say, don't live life full of regret. I'm sorry, or overuse the word, I love you. Just like the thoughtfulness and the consideration he had, they were action words, and talk was cheap. It didn't take him long to figure out that the R&D and the trial and error and all that gets you right back to, well, boy, listening sure is so much easier. We were able to witness Jeffrey, his quality of life change as his faith in Christ grew. As he recognized that no longer than he was all he thought about at one time, and realized that he wasn't all that. And like a ship that's 600 feet long, start turning it, start buttoning down, you start heading the right direction. We've seen that in his life. A great pleasure of parents and sisters is to be asked questions, to feel like you're getting what you tried to teach at times. And for me, it's like I told you so. That wants to surface. But for someone to ask you how to do something, or what you thought, was very satisfying. He was so courageous. I absolutely, as much as I wanted to think that I was all that, he was one of the few people I looked at and said, I don't like running around with this guy. Because I can talk about it and he can do it. From his motorcycle shenanigans to his way with people. I know that many of you could share equal in the vast amount of stuff about my son, and you'll have the opportunity. We invite you to stay and do so. But I'll recall just a few things that stick out to me. I was asked, well, what sticks out? What do you recall? I recall working on a job in Decatur, Texas. He had asked me for some little 8-penny hand-drive nails and a couple of 2x4s. He was going to work on something. I said, okay, good. Get out of my hair. Go do something we got to get done today and get home. He did not whatsoever have the patience to work on something for 20 minutes. What he was working on was remodeling probably about I don't know how many $1,000 bathroom that was complete in a custom home. And when I rounded the corner and looked in the bathroom, Jeffrey's precise words were, "Daddy?" I said, "Yeah, son." He says, quote, but I did beat a hole in it, Daddy." He didn't even get scolded. I said, "You're right. Now let's go to the supply house and order some things to put this back together. Good job." Although some of our choices as parents, let me talk for me in particular, the level of commitment wasn't as deep to Christ sometimes, or it needed to be, or my family, or my work, or my wife. But this very day, God is indeed the most faithful, relentless, and unconditional thing we've ever experienced. Two more things briefly. When Jeffrey was a small boy, his mama put these, she called them swim trunks, I call them Speedo. You've seen some of these guys with these Speedos on. If I could be proud in them, I'd wear them. But I used to tease him about those little purple Speedos, and his mama reminded me the other day, but they were orange and yellow, and there was patches on there like that. I told him he looked so much like a girl, he needed to squat and pee. And he hated that. But I tell you what, as of last week, I learned when to joke around about stuff like that, because he'd probably been dominant these days. And one last thought that might mean nobody, not much to anybody but myself and his sisters and his mom. We were at an event one time, and he was riding his motorcycle, wondering where he's at, and wondering where he's at, and wondering where he's at. He comes up and says, "Dad, I got this." And I said, "You do?" He says, "Yeah." I said, What's going on? He says, "I've been sitting over here in the woods listening to these 450cc motorcycles, and I figure they're hitting in about 4th gear, 5th gear, as hard as they can go, and they're going across this big gap. It's just a pile of dirt there that you got to jump across. You either make it or you don't." And my first thought was, boy, I wish I had courage like that. My second thought was, we'll be on the other side with a stretcher or the back of a four-wheeler or something to pick you up and get you to safety. And when all that began, Jory and I sat out there on that old four-wheeler, and we heard these motorcycles, the big bikes. You could hear them. They're deep-winded, coming through there. And you hear, wink, 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 wink. Sure enough, about 6 wink, winks, he was doing exactly what he said. And out of nowhere, this orange bottle rocket looking thing soared about 40 feet beyond the landing point, hit almost sideways, and as we're ready to run for his, help, he never went down. And he spun around and looked back, and he stuck his thumb up like that. That's how he did everything. I knew for that minute he wasn't going down in the creek bottoms again following some of these guys who didn't have what it takes. He wasn't going around, that every time it was going over, win, lose, or draw. We love that about him. Everyone did. I can't thank you enough for being here. And just seems like not a good time to stop. But we had a healthy child, a whole lot of memories, and great experiences that we'll never lose. And we're better for that. Thank you. Each and every one of you.